All right, picture this. You're walking down a shadowy street in 19th century Japan. The samurai era is slowly dying out. We're talking swords in the dark, intense rivalries, and a whole nation basically tearing itself apart. Today in this explainer, we're unpacking a massive historical true crime thriller. It's the story of Ikeuchi Daigaku, the man who fell to a fatal misunderstanding during the Bakumatsu period.
So our story actually kicks off on a freezing, pitch-black night in 1863. High-ranking government nobles in Kyoto wake up, walk outside, and make a completely horrifying discovery in their courtyards. Someone had literally thrown freshly severed human ears onto their property. Yeah, and attached to these gruesome packages was a chilling, blood-soaked note. Resign, or you will end up like these ears. It was pure, calculated political terrorism designed to shake the government to its absolute core.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Who on earth did those ears belong to? I mean, who was this victim? And what could he have possibly done to make his enemies hate him so much that they'd mutilate his body just to send a political message? To figure out this mystery, we've got to step back in time and uncover the identity of a guy caught right in the crossfire of a rapidly changing world.
Chapter 1. The Scholar and Spy.
But before we meet our victim, we really need to set the scene. He lived during a wild time called the Bakumatsu. For those who might not know, the Bakumatsu was the final, chaotic, incredibly violent chapter of the samurai era. We're talking the 1850s and 60s, and Japan is balancing on a total knife edge. Foreign ships are showing up, the old shogun's government is losing its grip, and rival factions are literally killing each other in the streets. It's an era totally defined by bloody assassinations and fierce ideological clashes.
And right in the middle of all this is our guy, Ikeuchi Daigaku. Born in Kyoto in 1814, he didn't actually come from some powerful samurai family. He was just a merchant's son. When he was 11, his dad passed away, urging him to become a doctor to, keep the family name respectable. So Ikeuchi did study medicine, but his teachers quickly realized, wait, this kid is an absolute genius at philosophy and literature. Fast forward to 1831, and his reputation as this brilliant scholar lands him a gig as a private tutor to the emperor's own relatives. But here's the twist. By the 1840s, this elite intellectual tutor starts living a double life as a secret political spy, secretly connecting the imperial court with powerful rebel groups.
See, he became a massive champion of a highly dangerous ideology called Sonno Joi, which basically translates to revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. It was a radical, fiery rebellion movement. Ikeuchi was using his razor-sharp intellect and his super-elite connections to actively plot against the ruling samurai government, and that made him a very, very dangerous player in Kyoto's underground political scene.
Honestly, his covert operations were so incredibly effective that the shogun's government put him on a literal most wanted list. And get this, they called the group he was in the Four Heavenly Kings of Evil Plots. I mean, just let that name sink in for a second. Ikeuchi Daigaku was one of these four. He was officially accused of high treason and plotting to overthrow the entire state. The guy was taking massive, life-threatening risks every single day.
Chapter 2. The Fatal Misunderstanding.
So Ikeuchi is playing this incredibly high-stakes game of political chess, but eventually, the shogun's government snaps. They launch what's known as the Ansei Purge. And this was terrifying, a ruthless, no-holds-barred crackdown. The government just starts hunting down, arresting, and executing its political enemies without an ounce of mercy. Hundreds of rebels and scholars are getting swept up in this massive wave of terror.
And right in the middle of this purge, watching his friends get executed, Ikeuchi Daigaku actually does something shocking. He turns himself in. He just surrenders. And miraculously, he gets off with a super light sentence, just a medium banishment. But you guys, here is the fatal misunderstanding. His radical allies, including notorious assassins like Okada Izo, became deeply, deeply paranoid. They looked at Ikeuchi surviving while everyone else was dying and thought, wait a minute, how did he live? They completely convinced themselves that Ikeuchi was actually a government spy, a traitor who had sold them all out just to save his own skin.
Chapter 3. Blood on the Bridge.
Okay, let's break down his final hours. It's January 22nd, 1863, and Ikeuchi is in Osaka, having what seems like a fantastic evening. He's invited to drink with the super-powerful former lord of the Tosa domain, Yamauchi Yodo. They're sharing drinks, talking politics, late into the night. It's a really cheerful, relaxed evening. But then, around 3 a.m., Ikeuchi starts heading home alone in his palanquin right in the dead of night. As he's crossing the Naniwa Bridge, 4 assassins suddenly jump out from the shadows.
The ambush was incredibly sudden and just violently brutal. Ikeuchi Daigaku, the genius scholar and imperial tutor, was beheaded before he even had a chance to fight back. But the assassins, they didn't stop there. To strike pure terror into the hearts of their political enemies, they publicly displayed his severed head right there on the bridge. And, bringing us right back to the terrifying hook of this explainer, they sliced off his ears, wrapped them up with a threatening letter, and hurled them into the courtyards of the government nobles. The tragic irony? He was brutally murdered by his own allies over a complete misunderstanding.
Epilogue: From Shadow to Light. Now, history rarely just ends with bloodshed, right? After that horrifying display on Naniwa Bridge, Ikeuchi Daigaku's remains were quietly gathered up and buried at a place called Daifuku-ji Temple in Osaka. It was supposed to be just a quiet, peaceful resting place for a man whose life ended in such unimaginable noise and violence. But let's fast forward just a few short years to 1869. The samurai era? Officially over. The new Meiji government is now in charge, and they are in a massive rush to modernize Japan. And they look at Daifuku-ji Temple, this exact site filled with such dark memories, and they decide to make a truly monumental change.
They actually transformed the temple grounds into the Osaka Prefectural Temporary Hospital. This is just absolutely fascinating to me. On the exact same soil that held the bloody, tragic memories of Bakumatsu terrorism, the real shadow of Japan's history, a completely new light emerged. This temporary hospital was a totally revolutionary facility that brought modern, life-saving Western medicine to the entire region. In fact, this very hospital at Daifuku-ji Temple, it's the direct historical root of today's world-renowned Osaka University Hospital.
Which leaves us with a truly profound question to wrap up on. Ikeuchi Daigaku started his life studying medicine, got dragged into a bloody political war, and was ultimately murdered by his own side. Yet the very place where he was laid to rest became a powerful beacon of healing and life. So what do you think? Does history remember us for the tragedy of how he died, or for the seeds of the future that are planted in our shadow? It's an incredible twist of fate that shows just how complex the tapestry of history really is. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks your curiosity to look a little deeper into the shadows of the past.